Unfortunately, we all know that what happened in LA will likely happen again somewhere else. Maybe not to the same extent, maybe not wildfire, but maybe it's hurricanes, maybe it's tornadoes, maybe it's earthquake, whatever that might be. But it's something that it has evolved, it will evolve into how we as a company react quickly to help our clients, our employees, and the community that we serve. It's very, very important for us is to making sure that we bring our expertise, our connections, our capital to bear to our clients and the communities that we're serving.
This is Doing the Right Things Well, a podcast that features conversations with leaders of America's best managed companies. I'm your host, Michael Kelly, the Executive Director of the Drucker Institute at Claremont Graduate University. The Institute is home to nearly a century of research on modern management thinking by Peter F. Drucker and those he inspired. For nearly a decade, we have published a ranking of America's best managed publicly traded companies. We base our model on their effectiveness with Drucker's 5 key principles: customer satisfaction, employee engagement and development, innovation, corporate social responsibility, and financial strength. 250 of those companies are highlighted in the Wall Street Journal each December. There are many great stories behind the data. Our goal of this podcast is to hear those stories directly from leaders of America's best managed companies and about the significance of their work contributing to a well-functioning society. Doing the Right Things Well is made possible by Claremont Graduate University, the Drucker School of Management, and the Charles Koch Foundation. To learn more about the Drucker Institute, please visit us at druckerinstitute.com. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Doing the Right Things Well with the Drucker Institute at Claremont Graduate University. Our guest today is Raul Anaya. He's a business, civic, and philanthropic leader who has spent the majority of his career in the financial industry with Bank of America. He's helping making financial lives better for people and businesses at all levels and supporting investments that help communities thrive. Welcome, Raul, and can you do a little self-introduction for us?
Sure. Thanks, Michael. Raul Anaya. I am president of business banking at Bank of America, which is one of our 8 lines of business. We work with companies that are from startup all the way to $50 million. So think of small business and medium-sized businesses. I also serve as president of Bank of America here for Greater Los Angeles as well.
Wonderful. So as listeners are going to know, the Drucker Institute at Claremont Graduate University does an annual rankings on corporate effectiveness of publicly traded companies. And what's great to know is, especially with you in our backyard here in Los Angeles, is that Bank of America continues to thrive as a top company in those rankings. And I think I was looking at the some of the data and overall effectiveness, you guys jumped 12 spots and you're always in the 10%. And we rank, up to 650, 700 companies, depending on what we have data on, right? On customer satisfaction, employee engagement and development, innovation, corporate social responsibility, and financial strength. So what I love to do on the podcast is there's always stories behind the data, right? Data is just, it's there, it lags a little. And going back into, you spent your career helping build this company. So what do you see as some of the secrets to success in some of these categories and of Bank of America overall?
Look, I think it starts at the top, right? First of all, with Brian Moynihan, our CEO, who has been our CEO for about 15 years. He came in shortly after the start of the financial crisis. The first few years was all about getting Bank of America out of, some of the issues that the entire industry had related to the financial crisis. And then in 2015, he introduced responsible growth mantra. It's something that as a company, all of us have been very focused on driving growth the right way with our clients. And so responsible growth has been what's been driving growth at Bank of America for the last 10 plus years. And it's working. When you look at share price appreciation, when you look at customer delight scores, when you look at market share gains, it's something that the entire company has been focused on. And it's something that we're very, very proud of because it's a way to help support our communities. It's a way to support our clients. So think of small businesses, that entrepreneur that starts a business with an idea and then it grows. And we have the ability to help support that small business, take it from a small local idea, help scale that small business to become a medium-sized business and eventually become a global business. We do the same thing through responsible growth and helping a family. It could be somebody just graduating from college and then starts their career, moves up, and has a family. We are there every step of the way. And that's, again, part of our responsible growth mantra. It's growing with our clients the right way to help support them and ultimately live our purpose, which is to help make financial lives better through the power of the connections that we bring to them.
Yeah, I love that. And I was blown away. I saw a stat, if it's, not if it's true, but I know it's true. 1 in 3 small businesses use your Bank of America business line.
We are the largest lender to small businesses in the country. And that's based on FDIC data. For 16 consecutive quarters, we've been the number one lender to small businesses. And if you think about it, small business is basically half of GDP, almost 50% of GDP. 99% of all the number of businesses are considered small businesses. And so we're very proud of that stat. We all know that small business is the lifeblood and the backbone of the U.S. economy. And you got a lot of these small businesses that over time just grow and become regional, then national and global companies.
Yeah, and that's what, Drucker is big. Like you exist as a bank, financial services, because you know the customer. You know what the customer values, right? And you're helping people, small businesses. People have an idea. They turn an idea into a business. You provide them the opportunity to grow, to create jobs. There's nothing better when they're providing of equity to that. So, but kind of if you look internal of the company, like this success is because of you've found the right people. You've recruited, you've developed, you help people grow, you help them thrive. You understand how to innovate, right? And you understand too, part of it is outside the walls. It's not just helping your customers and clients, but it's that corporate social responsibility. How do you see from the years that you've been there, plus tying into your role too, because at some point we're going to get into the personal, right, of your growth. Some of the things like this podcast is doing the right things well. Like in some of those categories, where do you keep going down that path?
Yeah, I mean, Michael, I think you touched on a few key things there that at Bank of America as a management team, we are always talking about. One is being relentless on serving the needs of our clients, right? Ultimately, we have to serve the needs of our clients, whether you're a small business, whether you're an affluent, wealthy family, whether you're a global company. It's all about client needs, number one. You touched on our employees. We have 212,000 associates globally. And we are very focused on making Bank of America a great place to work. We do that with our benefit package. We do that with how we develop and upskill all of our bankers. We provide leadership opportunities to our employees and the various leaders. So innovation, employees, and then ultimately, it's a key is just following and serving the needs of our clients. And the way we do that is being an important part of every community that we serve. Here in Los Angeles, as you know, we've been in Los Angeles for over 110 years. Our executives are on over 100 boards of nonprofits. They're part of the community. They're there providing civic leadership and guidance and financial expertise to these nonprofits that ultimately improve the quality of life in Los Angeles. We do that in 96 other cities where we have a local leader serving as the market president for that market, whether it's LA, which is what I serve as market president, New York, Chicago, Nashville, Bakersfield, 97 of these markets, because it's very, very important that we are part of that, the fabric of the community. So again, client needs, innovation, making Bank of America a great place to work for our employees, and ultimately being part of the community is very critical aspects of responsible growth and growing in the right way.
What I love about that is going back into is being out in the community, right? Is it's that part of Your company has its mission, its purpose, its values. It's when leaders are out in the community, you're living those values. You're representing those values. And that's what people see. And that's where the trust, authenticity, and sincerity comes from. And that other part too is this field of workforce development, getting people understanding what industries exist, what job opportunities exist, how can we get the skills to get jobs out there is right. You can't be it if you can't see it. Most people around family and stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, if you want to go in on that a little, I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, look, there's so many different things that uh, our, our our colleagues that serve as presidents of the various 97 markets across the country are focused on. One is making sure that we are a fabric of the community, and how do we do that? We serve on, you know, nonprofit boards, helping provide leadership to these nonprofits. We are engaging with our elected officials, with the mayor, county supervisors, local assembly members, because it's important that they understand how we are here to help grow the economy. Ultimately, it's about creating economic growth, but also directing our foundation resources. Here in LA, we provide nearly $10 million in philanthropic support to over 200 nonprofit organizations that are there to help improve neighborhoods around housing. Housing, as you know, is a very important need here in Los Angeles. It's about education. It's about creating jobs. To your point, workforce development. And so we're working very closely with all the various universities, local chambers of commerce, trying to connect the needs of the business community with what the university systems are graduating. Like that is just making sure that we're providing that match to help ultimately grow the economy of Southern California. That is done in all other 96 markets through the local leadership team that is led by the local market president at Bank of America there.
Thinking, a little more of, what's going on in Los Angeles right now. You want to talk a little about, this new role that you have?
So, in January 7th, 2025, all of us in Los Angeles, it was a big turning point for the entire region, for that matter, actually for the entire country, because we faced and experienced one of the largest wildfire disasters in the history of our country. Over $250 billion of economic loss, over 13,000 homes destroyed or damaged, predominantly in two areas, two communities, 50,000 acres burned to the ground. That's I always like to provide my teammates at the Bank of America to give them an understanding. That's 3 times the size of Manhattan, of just everything burnt. So as you can imagine, it was a devastating time. Brian Moynihan, our CEO, asked that I step aside from running business banking and instead really focus my time and effort on helping with the rebuild of LA, helping our clients rebuild. We had about 1,000 clients or so who lost their home. Our employees, we had nearly 50 employees who lost their home. And then, spending time in the community, working with the business community, working with our elected officials, and working with philanthropy to come up with some strategies to help with the rebuild. As you can imagine, we're still in the very early innings of this. I've been in this role now for about 5 months. I internally assembled a team of about 25 senior leaders across the company to help bring focus and ideas to the rebuild. So on our clients, we're very much focused on initially providing them with a single point of contact of how we can help them, whether it's providing them with forbearance so that they can preserve their cash, so that they can in turn use that to buy the most immediate needs that they have, like new clothes, new kitchenware, moving into a new home. And so we provided forbearance of their mortgage payments. We also provided them with helping them process insurance proceeds, right? As they start thinking about what they're going to do next. We're also innovating on products to help them with the rebuild effort, with the construction loan product, as they start thinking about those clients that want to rebuild, we're going to have a solution set for them so that they can in turn work with us, work with their insurance proceeds and this new construction loan product for them to be able to rebuild their home. And while we had 1,000 clients who lost their home, about 50% of those families that lost their home have some type of relationship with Bank of America. So our intent is to help all 13,000 families who lost their home in some way or fashion, and just making sure that, one, they understand that Bank of America is here to help them. We have the capital, we have the expertise as they think about rebuilding their next home. So that's on the client side. On the employee side, kind of the same thing. We've been helping them with temporary housing. We've also provided a third-party construction management firm that's providing them some guidance and ideas around if they do want to rebuild, if they've got questions around permitting and design work. It's quite an ordeal having to build a brand new house from scratch, and so we're providing a third-party source to help them think through all the nuances involved in building a new home. And then lastly, on the community side, I've been spending a lot of time with the mayor, with LA County Supervisor Catherine Barger, who oversees the Altadena location, and then also with the governor and the governor's office. So ultimately, it's going to be a private-public partnership that's going to rebuild LA. It's going to be a multi-year effort, and I'm confident that ultimately, when all this is said and done, we're all going to be looking back, and LA is going to be rebuilt in a much safer, more resilient way. We'll look back on this as a time that the entire community came together to help us rebuild after a disastrous incident.
Yeah, Raul, what's really cool what I hear is this is so, it just listening to your voice and the way you're talking about this is so personal, right? It's a community that you've supported, you've been in. We all have friends that have lost homes, people that have been impacted, small businesses, like there's a lot of uncertainty and all that. What have you learned as a leader yourself? Because, Drucker was big on, he used the term abandonment, which is really a big hammer over the head of a lot of people don't want to say we should abandon this. But part of your role as a leader, right, is to build up social capital. So when you see something like going into this new role, like sounds like there's innovative ways of doing something that potentially you might say we should scale this across the company because other things are happening around with regarding our environment in Florida and other places. How has this changed you potentially as a leader and a manager and understanding how to really drive results?
Well, I would say you touched on something because, the way we have been approaching the rebuild of LA as a company, and again, we're only 5 months into this. Brian asked me to take on this role in early February, right about a month after the fires had started. And so I've been in this expanded role for the last 5 months. And I think what we have come to learn is really we have created a new model to address natural disasters at Bank of America. First of all, we already have we have had a dedicated team we call the emergency response team within the bank, made up of a collection of senior leaders at the bank. Anytime there's any type of natural disaster, hurricane in Florida, a tornado in the Midwest, hard thunderstorms somewhere in the Northeast, and property gets damaged or clients are impacted or things happen around a community, we've always had a team of experts come together to react, to help our clients, help our employees, and again, our community. I think what we've learned here with this natural disaster, the wildfires in Los Angeles, is a different way of looking at innovation around product, around client support, where we will ring fence all of our clients that have been impacted and having a single point of contact for our clients so that they have one person to call for anything that they need at Bank of America. So we have come to what will eventually evolve into a new way to handle and address and help our clients whenever they have some type of a natural disaster event. Unfortunately, we all know that what happened in LA will likely happen again somewhere else, maybe not to the same extent, maybe not wildfire, but maybe it's hurricanes, maybe it's tornadoes, maybe it's earthquake, whatever that might be. But it's something that it has evolved, it will evolve into how we as a company react quickly to help our clients, our employees, and the community that we serve. It's very, very important for us is to making sure that we bring our expertise, our connections, our capital to bear to our clients and the communities that we're serving.
And how do you look at yourself? Like, think about your experience, right? And think about, I always say my friend said, with age comes wisdom, and it's the race to use it. But then again, we're always in a point of lifelong learning if we're open to it. I mean, is there like anything in particular that you had an aha moment yourself and on the work that you've been doing this last 6 months that really made you reflect?
Well, one of the first things that I've had a lot of aha moments in my new role in the last, going on 5 months. One is, how do you measure success? How do you measure success in rebuilding LA? What does that look like? What does that mean? And so I convened all 25 colleagues that are part of the LA Rebuild Council for a day and a half here in Los Angeles to talk about collectively how we're going to help rebuild LA. And the first hour was around is developing success metrics. What does that look like? How do we know we're accomplishing success with our clients? How do we know we're making progress with our employees? And what does success look like in the community? To where you ask a civic leader, you ask the mayor, you ask the governor, you ask an elected official or a business leader, what does success look like? What has Bank of America's impact been on the LA region because of this focused effort? So that's the first thing that we did. So that was a big aha moment. How do you take a very nebulous, complex situation and rally around what success looks like? So that was number one. Number two, working with, I've always been very involved, as you know, in the business community. And the speed of business works very, very fast, decisive. Decisions are made pretty quickly. Now, when you're dealing with our elected officials, it's a different pace. It's just, they're looking at policy. How do you implement policy to help expedite the redevelopment, the rebuild of LA? So, that was an aha moment, having to channel and work with elected officials, the business community, philanthropy. So in many respects, it's leading through influence to be able to rally everybody. And in many cases, a lot of time that I spend in the community is around convening the different leaders of the business community, philanthropy, and elected officials, and bringing ideas to bear so that we're all ideally marching the same direction at the same pace.
Yeah, and so we're actually working on an audiobook version of a book called A Functioning Society, because everybody knows Drucker, as Tom Peters had mentioned. He's the father of modern management, but really the majority of his books are about this well-functioning society, right? Business exists because of the customer, they know what the value and all that other stuff. But as business exists and thrives, which allows you to have government, allows you to have the social sector, the nonprofits, right? And this goes back into Drucker talking about contribution. Everybody has their mission, there's similarities, but there are differences, right? And understanding those nuances are important because government plays a significant role in our economy and our communities than it ever has, especially in the last 3 decades, particularly in this region. And you look at some of these issues, like someone once told me, there's problems and there's challenges. Problems is, what am I going to eat tonight? It could be a problem, but I know I'm going to solve it. I'm going to, slice a pizza. Challenges are things like democracy. You have to fight for it every day. Challenges, you're trying to mitigate impact. And that's what I see with some of these things that we are facing, right? They're more challenges. And it's being able to work with human beings to get this stuff done.
Yeah, look, that one of the things that I was very proud to see in my role here, working with so many, civic leaders, business leaders, constituents who love LA, is that there's a passion towards rebuilding LA the right way, the smart way, in a very caring way. So we are all rowing in the same direction. And I'm talking about all the stakeholders of LA, the business community, elected officials, philanthropy. And ultimately, the art's going to be to get everybody rowing at the same direction in order to ultimately improve and rebuild LA safer, more resilient way, so that when this type of disaster happens again in the future, the impact is not as significant or as severe as it has been here today, or in the last, in January of 2025. But everybody has the best intent on moving LA forward, and we have to, and we will. Next year we've got the World Cup, FIFA World Cup, and in 2028 we got the Olympics. And so LA was going to be ready for both global events, and you've got an entire community that's really focused on the rebuild of LA to help the 13,000 or so families that have lost their homes.
So before we jump to the personal, because I'm really always fascinated by personal, how we get to where we are is, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, is like, I think about going back to data, right? The data lags. 2024, Bank of America did well. And talking to some companies, I find it fascinating. They're like, oh, wow, it's really neat to see the results of what we invested in. We invested in a lot of employee development. It's nice to see we jumped up in the rankings. Is there anything that you when you think about customer satisfaction, employee engagement development, innovation, corporate social responsibility, or financial strength, that maybe we could look forward and say, hey, look, I bet you when you put those rankings out at the end of this year, we're investing in this, or you're starting to invest in it?
I would say a key area of focus that we have had for many, many years at Bank of America is just innovation. We invest nearly $13 billion every year on technology. And about $4 billion of that is for new innovative solutions, new innovative products for our clients, to help it for them to interact financially among themselves, with their customers, or with the bank easier, to how we introduce technology internally, so how our 212,000 employees are able to interact amongst ourselves, whether it's a new CRM system or helping our clients initiate and send wires out, or our business clients, from small businesses all the way to multinational global companies, how they interact with the bank and initiate payments. Right? We have a significant focus around technology, and how do we introduce and think about artificial intelligence to make it easier for our employees to do business amongst ourselves and our clients. Right? All those different things that we all read about is something that we are always talking about, and we're talking to our board of directors about on a regular basis. It's something that it's a key differentiator for us. And so we invest heavily in technology. In many respects, we are a technology company because of how the trillions of dollars that pass through our systems globally. We got to make sure that we execute on that flawlessly. So I would say innovation around technology is an important aspect of it. The second thing is how we invest in our people, both in the size of our sales force. Every year we are investing in hiring new bankers, business bankers that work with small and medium-sized businesses, to larger national businesses, to global businesses, to investment bankers. How we're investing in wealth management with advisors, whether it's through our teammates at Merrill Lynch or through our private bank. So we're continually growing the size of our sales force to be able to capture the market opportunity. That's also been a key area of focus for us. So innovation, technology specifically, building up the size of our sales teams to be able to handle more clients and continue to gain market share. And then the third thing is just opening and expanding into new markets. That's been a key part of our growth strategy as well. And all of that has been under the mantra of responsible growth that has worked very well for us. It's growing the right way with the client base that we are focused after, At the bank, there's at the start of every meeting that Brian Moynihan, our CEO, starts, including every town hall, he always puts up a slide, and it's called the placement. And the first thing that you see is our purpose statement. With the question, what would you like the power to do? And we all remind ourselves when we ask that question to a client, what would you like the power to do? That customer's response is what directs our next step, because that's what's important to the customer. And the placement has our values, has the four tenets of responsible growth. We must grow and win in the market, no excuses. We must grow with our customer-focused strategy. We must grow within our risk framework, and we must grow in a sustainable manner. Those are the four tenets of responsible growth, all through the 8 lines of businesses. And so that's the placement, that's responsible growth, and that's something that we've been at it now for over 10 years, and it's working. It's very effective.
Yeah, you know why it's effective? It's going back into, it's somebody once says, you don't really have to educate people as much as you got to remind them. And Drucker would always talk about, like, him bringing up that slide and the simplicity of the question is just, it's because it's a constant thought process, a constant evaluation of the organization, the self, to the customer, and all this other stuff. That's what I like about these conversations. You start seeing these little pieces like, oh, okay. Even though I asked about success, there's certain things you're doing, but it's those little kind of kernels that come out. And now think about it. I do have to ask, you mentioned AI, right? As you think you've been in the business, like I remember reading, if I was correct, back in the 1920s and 30s, even if you went to Harvard, you would have started as a teller. You think about Federal Express, you start as a driver. Boeing engineers are the backbone of companies. Like there's certain things, the backbone of the companies, and you've been around since Silicon Valley came out, all the software and the hardware. Do you see AI as something different? How are you thinking about AI and your approach as a leader in your position?
Well, as a company, we think about AI as something that's going to help improve and facilitate our clients' financial affairs with us, right? With anything that we do, it's all about the client. Right? It's how do we allow the client to interact with us easier at their time. And so AI, Erica, if you think about Erica, we have the Bank of America app. You can ask the app and for anything about your personal financial statements. How many, what's the balances in your collective deposit, in your collective accounts? Has this check cleared, right? We have that Erica. That's a form of artificial intelligence. We've had Erica for almost 7 years. So we've always had AI. I think now the national conversation is because it's now everybody's aware of AI. But at Bank of America, we've had it now for 6-7 years, a form of AI. And we're continuing to refine it. But the way we think about AI at the company is it's to help our clients with their banking affairs, their financial affairs, and making it easier for them, as well as also with our own employees. So as an example, one form of AI that we are implementing here now is our bankers that focus on small, medium, and global sized businesses. Before they call on a client or a prospect, we have tons of information within the four walls at Bank of America, right? We have the best equity research team on Wall Street that analyzes all the different industries and over 3,000 companies. We have information on various industries and all the participants in those industries. A banker, a commercial banker, a business banker that's going to go call on a manufacturer of a food item. We can go in and say, I'm going to call on ABC Food Company, and it'll generate a report that has information on the industry growth trends, the various industry participants, has information on the management team of that company based on sources that we know are reliable through their website, through LinkedIn, as an example. And it generates a report that might be 2 pages that all information could have been gathered manually by 2 or 3 analysts. Could have taken them 3 or 4 hours. But now with this new program, it can generate this 2-page report literally in 60 seconds. So it's a productivity tool that's going to allow our bankers to be smarter and faster in dealing with clients or prospective clients. That's just another way that we're using it. But it's something that we're using it to help further our business, to help our clients.
So the Raul I'm talking to right now was not the Raul. Let's go back. Let's say 8th grade. Like, who were you? Like, what were you thinking about life? What were you thinking about in general? Did somebody give you a nudge? Was it parental influence or friends or family friends or somebody? Like, what kind of started shaping you in the way you looked at the world and the way you responded to the world and experiences? Was there any particular point that you started developing? Was it the confidence or personality and all that other stuff?
Well, I do know that I got into business because my dad was a small business owner himself. He had a body shop, an auto body shop. And so, he and my mom would work together and had a small business in Brownsville, Texas. So I grew up in a family where my dad was an entrepreneur. A small business, it was just him and another employee, but he'd been doing that for many, many years. And so I grew up in that environment where he had every month he'd had to balance his checkbook. I would help him ultimately when I was in high school balance his checking accounts for Anaya's Body and Paint Shop. So I knew that I enjoyed the business aspect of it. I also knew that I enjoyed meeting people and building relationships, and was very curious about learning from others. So that would be the second aspect of why I know I got into banking. And I think the catalyst for me was when my dad and I joined my bank. My dad went to a bank in Brownsville, Texas. He needed a loan for some equipment. And, it was a bit intimidating for him because here he is walking into this bank in a small community. Everything is very formal, very professional. My dad was wearing his, normal auto body and paint shop uniform. So it's very intimidating for him. And so one, English was a second language for him. So I kind of had to help him a little bit. So I just knew that there's an opportunity for me to, one, leverage my knowledge and love for relationships to get into the business world, and seeing how he was a little intimidated, a little scared in interacting with the bank. But then also what I liked to see the environment that the bankers were in, very professional, and they were very much high profile in Brownsville, that I liked that aspect of it. And so I think that's what got me involved, my interest in finance. So I went to school and then ultimately joined the bank many, many years ago. And my career started in Houston. And I've always had this knack for building relationships with people, getting to know them, understanding what their story is. I was very curious about that. And so as I was able to build relationships in my early years, whether it was in college, eventually at Bank of America many, many years ago, it has served me well. And it continues to serve me well because it allows me to build the relationships that I've built in Los Angeles to help me, move forward in my new expanded role.
It reminds me, I hope I'm not misquoting, is Mark Twain. There's two significant points in your life: the day you were born and the day you figured out why you were born. And when I say that is, you're talking about, you've discovered certain internal qualities that you have being able to connect with people. I the same have discovered that. Sometimes it takes longer to do that because it's, we have families, we have parents, we have role models, we model behaviors and all that other stuff. But a lot of our personality is set. And, I've been looking at a lot of research lately. Like you can, if you want to be more extroverted, you can work on it, which is neat. And like willpower is a muscle and all this other stuff. So when you started, I guess 2 questions I'm thinking about, was there any, sage of wisdom, either from a model behavior that you learned from your parents or something that they would say to you? It's like they explain something to you like, hey, look, this is what's happening, or this is my viewpoint on this. Was there anything that you ever remember that kind of like it sat with you?
Yeah, one is just for my parents is just the focus. Like most immigrant families, both my parents came from Mexico and moved to Detroit, Michigan, which is where I was born. But they always instill a foundation of education and making sure that I was always continually learning. My dad would always read, and while English was a second language, he would always read the paper to help improve his English and to help learn new things about the world. And my mom was very entrepreneurial herself around business and around real estate specifically. So I think that was one. Two, I had a mentor very early on in my career who was somebody that he was my boss's boss, my manager. I reported to somebody, and he was the regional exec, and he was very very focused on instilling confidence in me, and he believed in me a lot more than I believed in myself at that time. But he gave me the courage to step out of my comfort zone, and so he's the one that taught me to find ways to get outside of your comfort zone, because that's the only way that one would grow personally. And so whether it's around public speaking, whether it's around, leading a team and providing very clear, candid feedback whenever there's a difficult conversation, as an example. But he was the one that would always push me and ask, have what are your new uncomfortable zones, right? You got to get outside of your comfort zone in order to be able to grow as a person, as a leader, as a banker. And so I think about my parents on education. I think about my mentor who helped me, push me to get outside my comfort zones, to find uncomfortable zones so that I can grow.
Okay, so you're developing, you're in the financial services industry, you're reporting to people. Is what happened when you first started leading people, right? It's people say like the hardest thing to do is the business is easy. It's managing people. Like when was the moment that you're like, hey, I can do this? And when was the moment that you actually questioned yourself and saying, somebody that reports to me mentioned something to me, and I realized, wow, I take that to heart. I guess I could do better than that.
Yeah, I think the first time I had a leadership opportunity was when, again, my mentor, who asked me to lead and promoted me to run South Texas, San Antonio and South Texas at the early age of 32. For me, was early. And I was leading a team of about 10 bankers. And I didn't think I was ready for it. But again, under the mantra of let's get you outside of your comfort zone, same person that was talking to me about that, he placed me as a leader in an uncomfortable zone for me. And so in many respects, I learned leadership right away. I always knew I could connect with people and I would connect with my team. But you're right. I think one of the early leadership lessons for me was making sure that you inspire, you motivate, and ultimately you get to know the person as a person in order for you to be able to move the levers that inspires them and motivates them. So it's having that, again, falling back on my ability to connect with people at a different level in order to inspire and motivate them. And sometimes, I had to have some tough conversations with them, which was also, again, uncomfortable. But over time, as you do this more and more often, what is uncomfortable becomes more comfortable.
As we're winding down here, is going back into I love, because part of the thing is Peter Drucker is no longer with us, but his messages are. And I've been saying lately, like, what's the difference on these messages? Like the fundamentals are the difference, right? Fundamentally, Drucker was a certain point in time in history where, you go back to the Greeks and the Romans and the great philosophers of Scotland and England and Ireland and Italy and other parts of the world. He was kind of this turning point where he collected all that knowledge and he looked at what was happening in the early 1930s in the globe and thought about, man and man's strive for purpose, not just economic means, and what's a functioning society. So as you get through here, like I've heard the different themes, but now that we've had this conversation, and kind of like not educating, but reminding of some of Drucker's core philosophies that we like to espouse and bring into the world, particularly through these companies and leaders doing the right things well. What things have kind of now you've thought through? You're like, huh, this is pretty neat. How really well aligned I am with some of these.
Yeah, I've looked it out. I obviously spent some time on the Drucker's principles. I agree with all of them, but I think the ones that I gravitate most towards would be three of them. One is around understanding the customer needs. Ultimately, we are at Bank of America as a banker. We work for our clients, and ultimately, we have to serve our clients' needs. So it's everything about the client, right? It's really understanding what they need and then coming up with solutions for them. So focus on understanding the customer needs. The second one is around the employee, because ultimately, leading a team is one of the most important ways to really have impact with customers in the community. And you're only as good as your team. And so if you recruit, you grow and you develop a high performing, high functioning team by committing yourself to their development, you bring inspiration, you bring motivation, you bring followership. So the principle around employee orientation, growing and developing your people is very, very important to me. And I think the last one is everyone lives by values, right? At the end of the day, you have to have a value system that you as a company and you as a leader has to follow. It allows you, provides you with your North Star, and it's a way for your team and the rest of the company to understand, what your value system is, and you can't violate them because then it sets the wrong tone, and it's not the right way of doing it. So those are the three Drucker principles that to me resonated the most. Focus on understanding customer needs, the employee orientation, and then lastly, everyone lives by the values.
Yeah, I mean, part of what I've discovered in doing this podcast and talking to people like yourself is, and I've heard feedback from, people that work with the people I interview. They're like, wow, it's fascinating. I learned something about my boss. I learned that what really drives him, or it made me think a little more deeper, because this goes back into what Drucker talked about. It's like, I try to tell my kids too, is like the teacher's a human being. The principal's a human being. Everybody is. Anybody out and about in our community. And we tend to forget that. And so when you're talking about this kind of personalization of the business you're in and the path you're going in, it's like this, you're not one or the other. You are not your profession. You are not just Raul Anaya. You're someone who has your own purpose, vision that aligns well with the company. And so I always love to end. And like I always said too, I set it up as not kind of a glib kind of thing, but I like this kind of I told you so. A year from now, we're having a conversation. You're like, Michael, I was really thinking about something particular that I think is going to happen. Is there anything that kind of jumps into the forefront of your mind on I told you so?
Yeah, I think I think LA is going to be coming out of the shadows of destruction. We're going to have a lot more progress a year from now. Again, we're still only 5 months into this, going on 6 months as a community. But a year from now, we're going to have some really good progress around the Altadena and the Palisades, and the entire community is going to continue to rally around the rebuild of LA. And LA is going to come out stronger, safer, more resilient than it's ever been. Because at the end of the day, the reason I love LA is because of the entrepreneurial spirit that we have in this region. And I think it's just going to continue, and it's going to get stronger. And ultimately, we're going to look back, and LA is going to be much more connected and very, very proud of what the new LA is going to look like.
Yeah, I moved here 25 years ago myself. And I like, Dr. Kevin Starr, the state librarian, wrote many books One of the best is California Endures. Los Angeles Endures. In Los Angeles, California, that helps drive other things throughout this nation and world, it's going to be successful because of people like you who understand that you have a professional role, a philanthropic role, and you're looking to invest in people into communities. And that's going back to Drucker, is like giving people title in society and a role in community, giving people purpose. So I greatly appreciate your hour of your time, your leadership on behalf of all of us in this region and the listeners. And thank you so much, Raul.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to be with you.
We thank you for listening to Doing the Right Things Well podcast. We'd also like to thank the Charles Koch Foundation for its generous funding to help make this podcast possible. The Charles Koch Foundation works to ensure all people have the opportunity to live a life of meaning and contribution based on their unique gifts and aptitudes. They do this by investing in the social entrepreneurs who can transform the institutions most responsible for lifelong learning, post-secondary education, and business, and empowering people to engage in work that benefits everyone. To learn more about the Charles Koch Foundation, please visit charleskochfoundation.org. That's Charles, Koch Foundation.org. Please do subscribe to the Drucker Institute's YouTube, Spotify, and Apple podcast channels to listen to more episodes in this series.